3 FANG internship offers, return offers secured. All of them paid me over $50 an hour as a student. In this video, I'm handing you the entire system I used to get them, every step in the order that I ran it, so that you can run this exact same playbook in the upcoming recruiting season. And I want to start with the uncomfortable part. The students who are firing 400 or 500 applications are not getting unlucky. They're skipping the 5 steps that actually decide who gets hired, and no amount of volume is going to fix that. I know because I did the same thing my first time around. I mass applied and I got ghosted, and I assumed that the entire system was just broken. It wasn't. My approach was, the moment that I fixed it, the callback started, and they didn't stop until I had multiple offers to choose from. So here's the whole thing. I'm gonna walk through 5 steps. And you can think of them as sort of a funnel. It starts with your profile, then how you target companies, then how you actually get seen by a real person, then the interview stage, and then how you close it. Most people obsess over just one of these stages and forget about the other ones. If you look at all of them as a whole, it'll finally stop feeling like a lottery system. Let me start by just killing the whole apply more problem. Applications are a conversion problem, not a volume problem. If your profile converts at basically 0, then 500 times 0 is still 0. That's the math that nobody really wants to look at. The reason spam applying like that feels productive is because it's easy and it keeps the anxiety quiet for an afternoon. But what you're doing is you're pouring water into a bucket that has a hole at the bottom, and no amount of water is gonna ever fill up that bucket. Everything I'm about to show you is designed to raise your conversion rate at each stage, so smaller amount of applications lead to a larger amount of interviews. Step 1, fix your profile before you send in a single application. This is the top of the funnel, and it has the most leverage because everything converts downstream. A recruiter spends no more than 10 seconds before deciding whether your resume is a yes or no. If it doesn't clear that skim, then nothing else in this video even matters, because you're not going to get to the interview stage where you'd shine. I rebuilt my resume before the last cycle, and the difference was undeniable. I've already made a video talking about my resume, but I've now just made a resume template, which I'll have linked in the description. Feel free to copy that resume exactly as structured so you don't have to guess. But just to summarize my resume video for you, you want to make sure that it's 1 page, no exceptions to that. You want to make sure that you're leading with a result and not a task. And you want to make sure that you're including a number wherever you can. Saying that you built some feature is invisible, but saying that you cut the load time for a page by 40% shows real impact. Also, make sure that you put your strongest project first, because like I mentioned, they only have 10 seconds and that's often all they're gonna get to. And obviously keep the formatting clean so that both a human and an AI system can parse it. Step 2, make sure that you apply early and not late to everything. Internship recruiting runs on a rolling basis, and many companies open recruiting in the fall, and they tend to fill seats as strong candidates fill in. If you're applying in November or January, a lot of those seats are already gone, and it's an edge that you've lost. You're now competing for less seats with a deeper pool of people. For example, for me, I applied to my AWS internship the day that it opened, all the way back in August. I noticed that I was one of the only people in my friend group to even receive any sort of callback from AWS that year. For my Meta internship, I applied the second day that it opened, and that's because I used that first day to secure a referral. The pattern that I saw was pretty simple. If you apply early, you have a much higher chance of getting any type. It's pretty simple to do this. You want to make sure that you have some sort of alert set so that you can apply to a job within hours of it being posted rather than a few days. I linked the job tracker that I personally used below, and it updates every few hours with multiple sources so that you never miss a listing. Applying early gets you into the pile, but there's one move that gets you almost completely out of the pile, and it's a move that most students are too scared to make. Step 3, referrals. A referral is the difference between your application landing in a pile of 10,000 other applications and in a pile right in front of a human who actually has reason to look at it. At FANG scale, this one move changes your odds the most, and it's the one most people often skip out on because reaching out to a stranger feels awkward. The offers that I'm proudest of started with referrals. Both my Google and my Meta internship offers were through referrals, and my Google new grad offer was also via a referral. To do it, you want to start with the warmest connections that you have. Obviously, this would be friends or family, but if you don't have that, then alumni connections are a super strong way to go as well. Keep the message short and specific. Introduce yourself, explain why you're reaching out to them in particular, and something about their company that drew you. Don't ask directly for the referral, but instead ask to set up a meeting with them to try and foster at least a little bit of a connection before you get to that referral stage. A short, respectful message to a busy engineer is going to beat a super long, flattering one that'll take them time to read. Let's say all of this works and the interviews start landing. Now you're in the room and there are two types of interviews that are going to decide whether you make or break the offer. Step 4, prepare for both types of interview rounds. First is the technical round. Yes, at this point, you still need to practice data structures and algorithms. Some companies have moved towards more of an AI-based problem-solving type of interview, but the vast majority are still conducting leak code style interviews. However, grinding hundreds of leak code problems is the wrong way to go about it. You're going to want to be practicing by pattern instead and making sure that you can recognize these patterns on game day. I organized my own prep around a tiered problem list so that I could gain exposure to as many patterns as possible while also building depth in these patterns so that I could recognize them and learn how to apply the solutions for these patterns. Let me know in the comments below if you want access to my personal guide that I use to crack data structures and algorithms. And that's something that I can totally give out. The goal here is that you want to be able to walk into a room and think clearly and not just have memorized 1,000 solutions to randomly code problems. The second is the behavioral round. This is the round that most people kind of treat as an afterthought. And if two engineers have the same level of technical skills, the behavioral is where the tiebreaker is going to go. Here, you want to prepare a handful of real stories ahead of time, structured around a situation and what you did and what the result of that is. Then you want to practice rehearsing some of these situations and adapting these situations to different styles of questions. You want to make sure that you are doing this out loud, preferably with another person, so that it can come off as less rehearsed and more conversational. I personally think that the behavioral is where I separated from other candidates who could code just as well as I could, or even better for some. One example of that is a question that I got asked during my Google behavioral interview. The question was, if you and your team of 6 other people all worked on some project for some amount of months, and right when you were about to present your results, one of the members of your team took all of the work and kind of brandished it as his own and went to a higher up ahead of time, what would you do? So I started out by answering a pretty simple answer. It was just, I would kind of gather all of the proof and go to the same higher up and kind of show that, hey, you know, my team has been working on this together with this many commits, etc. Right? The interviewer followed up by saying, what if the manager takes the side of the first person, even after all of that proof? At this point, I think most people would be caught off guard or confused, because this is not a super common question or a common situation that comes up in the tech. However, I quickly doubled down and said that I would go up to somebody else who was higher up, maybe even that manager's manager, and kind of present the same thing. The interviewer continued with his path and again asked like, oh, what would you do if that person also felt the same way? And then I said that I would go to HR or someone different. I essentially continued to be strong and confident in my response, no matter what the interviewer was kind of steering me toward. I think that ability to think quickly on my feet and not be caught off guard there really separated me in the behavioral round. Now, once you've got interviews converting to offers, there's one last stage that most people ignore because they're just relieved to be done. Step 5, run it like a funnel and use offers to get offers. Landing one offer is not the finish. Managed correctly, you can use this one offer to land even more. All you need to do is keep a simple tracker of all of your processes and what stage they're in and what deadlines you have. First off, recruiters respect candidates who are responsive and organized, and it keeps you from letting a live opportunity go cold. When you do get an offer, you can use it to accelerate other companies' timeline. When you do get an offer and it has a deadline, you can politely let other companies know that you do have an offer deadline waiting and ask them to move up their recruiting timeline for you. Honestly, this accelerates everything. Companies move a lot quicker when they know they may lose you. My one rule is to never fabricate an offer that you don't have. It's a small world and your reputation in this industry compounds for decades. If you do all 5 of these steps, you stop being at the mercy of the market. You become the person that the market competes for. So that's the full system. Fix the profile so it actually converts. Apply early. Chase referrals. referrals. Practice both types of interviews beforehand and use your offers to get more offers. The real lesson underneath all of these is that it never was a lottery. It's just a system, and every single system has a lever that can be pulled. I personally went from being ghosted to choosing between 3 FANG offers, and that all happened because I stopped guessing and I started running this system. If you want to run the system with people who've sat at the other side of the table at companies like Meta, Salesforce, Anduril, Amazon, Capital One, and that's exactly what we built Landed HQ to do. The link is below, along with the job tracker and the resume template that I mentioned before. Use those even if you decide never to talk to us. Like and subscribe for more.